What is up, you guys? Clayford08 here, and today we have a very important message. I need everybody in the United States to listen very carefully about today's topic because this applies to you if you are investing in ICOs. This is very, very, very important. So please continue watching. Today, I'm going to break down the entire message that was released today by the SEC. For those of you that don't know what the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission does, they basically regulate securities and things like that on the open market. They are a government entity that basically writes the law on these things, on investments and things like that. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this. Okay, so the press release was SEC issues investigative report concluding DAO tokens, a digital asset, were securities. So what that means is if you were a part of the DAO or the creators of the DAO had to uphold the law based on this new finding that DAO tokens were securities. Essentially, if the DAO were to happen today, they would have to register with the SEC stating, hey, this is what we're about to do, and be a legal entity. Now, the SEC could reject their application, and then they wouldn't be able to list in the United States. And that would just drive that ICO away from the United States into a different country so that they could still list their ICO. But I'll get into that a little bit more later. So let's just jump right into this and discuss what it is that we're reading. And I'm going to break this down into each paragraph. All right. Washington, D.C., July 25th, 2017, the Securities and Exchange Commission issued an investigative report today cautioning market participants that offers and sales of digital assets by virtual organizations are subject to the requirements of the federal securities laws. Such offers and sales conducted by organizations using distributed ledger or blockchain technology have been referred to, among other things, as initial coin offerings or token sales. Whether a particular investment transaction involves the offer or sale of a security, regardless of the terminology or technology used, will depend on the facts and circumstances, including the economic realities of the transaction. So essentially what this is saying is, if you're using distributed ledger or blockchain technology to create an initial coin offering or token sale, you are required to register that security as a security. All right, moving on. The SEC's report of investigation found that tokens offered and sold by a virtual organization known as the DAO were securities and therefore subject to the federal securities laws. The report confirms that issuers of distributed ledger or blockchain technology-based securities must register offers and sales of such securities unless a valid exemption applies. Those participating in unregistered offerings also may be liable for violations of the securities laws. Additionally, securities exchanges providing for trading in these securities must register unless they are exempt. The purpose of the registration provisions of the federal securities laws is to ensure that investors are sold investments that include all the proper disclosures and are subject to regulatory scrutiny for investors' protection. So essentially what they're saying is you can't just list any ICO anymore. You have to register that offering with the government, and that way people have full disclosure of what you're about and what you're trying to fund your project for, and essentially make it a legal security. All right. The SEC is studying the effects of distributed ledger and other innovative technologies and encourages market participants to engage with us, said SEC Chairman Jay Clayton. We seek to foster innovative and beneficial ways to raise capital while ensuring, first and foremost, that investors and our markets are protected. So, blah, blah, blah. They're just saying that they want to make sure that investors are protected. I don't know how much of that I believe. Investors need the essential facts behind any investment opportunity. What? Okay, so the first thing that I have to say about this is, if you're an investor and you don't know what you're investing in, then you've already fucked up. I don't need the government to tell me that this is what you're investing in. I mean, yeah, if it's true that they're really trying to protect investors by giving full disclosure of what these projects are about, cool. But I don't think that's their intention. I don't think they have the best intention for the investors. You know, you can argue with me about that all you want, but I really don't. I think this is a plan to regulate and get their tax money. But this being told, like, oh, you don't know what you're investing in and that's why we have to do this, that's just complete crap. Okay, investors need the essential facts behind any investment opportunity so they can make fully informed decisions. And today's report confirms that sponsors of offerings conducted through the use of distributed ledger or blockchain technology must comply with the securities laws, said William Heinemann, director of the Division of Corporation Finance. Awesome. So another government entity. The SEC's report stems from an inquiry that the agency's enforcement division launched into whether the DAO and associated entities and individuals violated federal securities laws with unregistered offers and sales of DAO tokens in exchange for Ether, a virtual currency. The DAO has been described as a crowdfunding contract, but it would not have met the requirements of the regulation crowdfunding exemption because, among other things, it was not a broker-dealer or a funding portal registered with the SEC and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. Okay, so they're just now claiming that DAO tokens and ICOs like it are securities. So I can't see how they could say that it was illegal when there was no regulation on it before. That really doesn't make any sense to me. Alright, moving on. The innovative technology behind these virtual transactions does not exempt securities offerings and trading platforms from the regulatory framework designed to protect investors and the integrity of the markets, said Stephanie Avakian, co-director of the SEC's Enforcement Division. Stephen Piken, co-director of the Enforcement Division, added, as the evolution of technology continues to influence how businesses operate and raise capital, market participants must remain cognizant of the application of federal securities laws. So essentially they're saying, all right, companies, if you're going to do this, make sure that you register. In light of the facts and circumstances, the agency has decided not to bring charges in this instance or make findings of violations in the report. Oh, well, that's good that they're not going to file charges on the DAO, considering this wasn't regulated last year when it occurred. How could they possibly make charges towards these people if it wasn't regulated at that time? You're just now saying that this is a security. But rather, to caution the industry and market participants, the federal securities laws apply to those who offer and sell securities in the United States, regardless whether the issuing entity is a traditional company or a decentralized autonomous organization, regardless whether those securities are purchased using US dollars or virtual currencies, and regardless whether they are distributed in certificated form or through distributed ledger technology. So this kind of is what leads me to believe that they just want to tax this. They want to make sure that they're getting their money. The government wants their money in this. And, that's fine. People need to be paying their taxes. It's the only legal thing to do. I don't encourage anybody to not pay their taxes on cryptocurrencies, but they don't need to tell people that they're doing this in the best interest of the investors. Just come out and say, hey, we want our tax money. I'd be totally okay with that. The SEC's Office of Investor Education and Advocacy today issued an investor bulletin educating investors about ICOs. Now, if you click on that right there, this actually has some pretty good information for people that are trying to get into ICOs and invest in some things. You really should read this and take a look at some of the potential warning signs of investment fraud, because there have been some ICOs that have definitely been fraud, and people need to recognize these things before they invest in something, especially if you're going to be investing quite a bit of money. You really, really need to take a look at some of the warning signs that might be there if these ICOs are going to be partaking in fraud. All right, so the SEC's Office of Investor Education and Advocacy today issued an investor bulletin educating investors about ICOs. As discussed in the report, virtual coins or tokens may be securities and subject to the federal securities laws. The federal securities laws provide disclosure requirements and other important protections of which investors should be aware. In addition, the bulletin reminds investors of red flags of investment fraud and that new technologies may be used to perpetrate investment schemes that may not comply with the federal securities laws. So yeah, take a look at that investor bulletin. Okay, so I kind of gave my opinion about this for the most part, but I really want to drive some things home. So first of all, I think that by doing this, we might start seeing some more investors, and that is a good thing, because a lot of investors will not invest in something unless they have government-backed protections, and by making ICOs register with the SEC, it will, increase the amount of investors that come in and invest in these projects. So that in itself is a good thing. I really appreciate that, and I hope that it does bring more investors in. But at the same time, by saying that these ICOs that took place before this were illegal, I really can't see how, and it kind of pisses me off that they would call those illegal whenever they have refused for the past, 8 years since Bitcoin came out, to call these securities. I really can't see how they could say that these were illegal. So that bothers me. And it bothers me that the government is trying to say that we're doing this in the best interest of the investors. They need to know what they're investing in. Well, no, I don't need the government to tell me what I'm investing in. I know what I'm investing in if I invest in an ICO, and I know the risk that I am taking if I do so. I don't need the government to tell me that. And that bothers me. But I know that there has to be some form of regulation here. The government was not going to allow this to continue to go on, people getting scammed out of millions of dollars. I knew that this was bound to happen. So I really hope that they are not very stringent on their rules with this. I hope that it will allow more ICOs to come to the United States, because if you look at some of the biggest ICOs right now, you can't even participate in them in the United States. But hopefully this might bring some of these ICOs back to the United States. If they take the proper legalities, if they take the proper steps to make their ICO legal by registering with the SEC. Hopefully it'll bring some of those back. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. I want to give a huge shout out to the person that sent me 2 Litecoin yesterday. I really, really do appreciate that. And I hope you know that it is going to help grow this channel and help spread more knowledge about blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies as a whole. I will do my best to continue to bring the best information I know possible to this channel. And I really, really do appreciate you helping me grow. I'm not going to mention your name on channel because I know that you wouldn't want that. But thank you so much. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today. Clayford08 out.